If you're having a hard time getting your dog to cooperate with you, or if you're afraid of damaging your relationship with your dog by correcting them in the wrong way, then this video should shine some light on your situation and put some tools in your dog training tool belt. Hello world, do you want to learn something about dogs? I'm going to show everyone how to effectively communicate with our dogs to help them understand what we're asking, and how to reward and correct our dogs in the most effective way. In order to do that, we need to talk about the two types of rewards and the two types of corrections. They're going to have one that is additive when we are adding something to the interaction, and they each have one that is subtractive when we take something away during the interaction. We use rewards at the right moment to identify and teach our dogs that their current behavior is a good thing and that we want them to do it. Adversely, we use corrections at the right moment to identify a bad behavior and communicate to our dogs that it is not wanted. Now, the timing of these rewards and corrections is the key to helping our dogs understand which behaviors are wanted and unwanted. In other words, if we mistime the rewards or corrections, we end up confusing our dogs by not communicating in a clear and consistent way. And we lose our dog's trust when we're being inconsistent. So we have to get that timing right. And in order to do it, we need to clearly identify the behaviors in the dog that we want to reinforce or dissuade them from doing. Once we clearly have the behavior identified, we can give a reward or apply a correction the instant the dog starts or stops doing it. Then we consistently repeat that reward or correction every time they show the behavior, and this is how we be consistent, and being consistent builds a trusting relationship. To make things easier, I recommend to pick one behavior at a time to work on. This will help communicate the message very clearly to the dog that this one behavior is what they need to be aware of. It also makes it easier for us to get the timing right when we only have one behavior to focus on at a time. If we apply the reward or correction every time they do it, our dogs will know exactly what we want from them. So let's start with additive rewards. I'm going to pick sitting down as the behavior that I want to see and focus on. Now that we've clearly identified the positive behavior, we need to reward our dog when they sit. Treats are an additive reward, and any type of food can be a treat, and most dogs love them. A small treat is a smaller reward, and a big treat is a bigger reward. And certain foods will have higher value than others, creating an even bigger reward in the dog's mind. We can give a treat every time our dog sits. Positive touch is anytime we love on our dogs physically. Rubbing, petting, holding, kissing, and snuggling are all good examples of this one. But the animal needs to trust us in order for positive touch to be perceived as a reward. If we don't have enough trust built up, then physical touch might be perceived as a correction. So if there is enough trust, we can give a positive touch as a reward for our dog for sitting. Verbal rewards. Dogs are vocal creatures, and they are very in tune with the noises that we make. So a soft, loving word can calm a scared dog, and an excited, high-pitched greeting can make them bounce off the walls, or more likely the couch, with joy and excitement. Dogs have a basic understanding of our tonality, and they can learn specific words when used consistently. A soft word like good or yes, the moment they sit down, is a verbal reward, and it can help them understand that this is the behavior we want to see. Now, what if I want to get a dog to stop jumping up on me? In order to communicate to the dog that I don't like what it's doing, I need to apply a correction. An additive correction is anything that we add to the situation to correct a behavior that we don't like. Verbal alerts. These work like a warning to the animals. They grab the dog's attention and act as a pattern interrupt. Some examples are shh, no, hey, or a snap of the fingers. They're usually sharp, quick, low-pitched, and intense sounds. When verbal alerts are timed right, they pinpoint the bad behavior very accurately, and it helps the dog recognize what you're asking them to stop doing. We can say no or down to get the dog to stop jumping on us. But it's important to know that warnings won't always have power on their own. If a warning doesn't work, we need to escalate to a more confrontational correction. Like taking space. When a dog is jumping up on us, we can lift our knee to bump them back down, or we can walk through them as if they're not even there. The goal is to move their body and gently knock them back down to all four paws. Whoever is taking space is establishing themselves as the leader. This technique is slightly confrontational, but only slightly, so it usually won't trigger the dog's fight or flight response. The next escalation is controlling their body, and it includes any physical contact that restricts or moves their body. It includes grabbing a leg or foot, pulling on a leash, holding their muzzle, holding their body close to ours, and many more things. The goal is not to cause pain, but to control the animal. usually until they're in a calm state and holding still. This technique can be very confrontational, so the intensity that we use needs to be carefully managed for it to be effective. Too much pressure or really intense energy can scare them into a fight or flight response. The last and most confrontational correction is biting. Biting is when we grab the dog at the back of the neck, using our fingers to apply a pressure like a bite. We want to get a good hold of the neck itself, not just the skin, and the back of the neck is the only spot I recommend using this technique. If we try to do it anywhere else on the dog's body, we don't have control of the dog's neck and head, and most importantly, their mouth, and they can bite us back pretty easily. This correction should only be used when the animal is being aggressive, and we should be prepared for the dog to respond with more aggression toward us when we do it. Aggressive behavior is unacceptable to me, and in these types of situations, we need to match the level of intensity that the dog is displaying. Our goal with this correction is to get the situation back under control, never to hurt the animal. If we do have to use the bite, we need to immediately de-escalate the situation as soon as the dog has stopped trying to bite us. We need to make sure we get the dog's nervous system calmed back down and out of the fight or flight mindset before continuing. Now, a subtractive reward can only be given to the dog after an additive correction has been applied. It's the act of reducing some of the pressure or releasing some of the control back to the animal once they're in a calm mindset. For example, if I'm trying to cut my dog Zyra's nails, and while holding her foot, she is trying to pull her foot away from me, I will apply an additive correction of controlling her foot. So I squeeze her foot tight enough that she can't pull it free, but I still want her to be able to move her leg to make it less confrontational. I will hold on to her foot until she stops pulling. Once Zyra shows calm energy and holds that foot still, I immediately give her a subtractive reward by releasing some of the pressure in my grip. It's a small reward, but with correct timing, she will feel the release, and it will give her a sense of relief and reward, and she'll begin to connect that holding still gets her a reward. If we had to use the bite correction, releasing some of that pressure once they hold still is even more noticeable and even more rewarding. And it's essential to de-escalating those intense situations. When we use subtractive rewards, pay attention to how good they are at building trust, and then stack lots of them and we will earn lots of trust. Last but not least, subtractive corrections are when we withdraw a reward and they are used to correct a dog in the least confrontational manner. These corrections require very low energy inputs and are the most indirect, and they work very well with highly reactive dogs. Withdrawing treats can be explained with this example of how I train Zyra. I will show her a treat in my hand to grab her attention with an additive reward. I ask her to sit with my hand signal and my voice at the same time. She knows this task very well and sits down immediately, and I give her a treat. Then I give her a second command, to lay down, and I point at the ground with another treat in my hand. But instead of laying down like I asked, she walks up to my hand and sniffs for the treat. This is the moment when I actually use the subtractive correction, and I pull my hand up and away from her. She was so close to the reward, and now it's so far away, and she didn't receive it. I will then repeat the steps and only give her the treat when she lays down. This allows me to control a source of pleasure for Zyra, and it helps create a leadership dynamic where I am in charge. Now that we know the types of rewards, some of us might be wondering, are rewards or corrections more effective? But I don't think this is the right question to ask, and here's why. Rewards are better at helping the animal to identify and understand what behaviors we do want to see from them. And corrections are better at helping the animal identify and understand which behaviors we do not want to see from them. In addition, rewards create more long-term change, and corrections create faster short-term change. So the question that I want us to be thinking about is, how do we use rewards and corrections to be the most effective? We've already covered the importance of clearly identifying the behavior that we want to change, timing the reward or correction as close to that behavior as possible, and consistently repeating the reward or correction every time the behavior is observed. The next step to maximizing our effectiveness is to combine the different types of rewards or corrections and apply as many as we can at the same time. When we combine rewards, we increase the chance that our dog understands they're being rewarded. They will become familiar with all the types of rewards and associate them with each other. Plus, stacking rewards like this increases the total perceived value to our dogs, and valuable things are worth working for. For example, if I want to correct Zyra for jumping up on me when I come home, I will use the verbal alert, or down, while I take space by stepping into where she's currently standing. Usually this is enough to get her to stop, but sometimes she's being extra and I have to repeat the steps and control her body by placing a hand on top of her head or shoulders and gently pushing her down. Next, I'll tell her to sit. And to reward Zyra for listening to my sit command, I'll give her a treat while saying good girl, and use my other hand to apply a positive touch at the same time. We've now successfully used corrections and rewards, and we're on our way to training our doggos like a pro. The next video in this series covers how to read a dog's body language to interpret their mindset. We'll use that information to learn which of these rewards and corrections should be used and which ones should not be used in different situations in order to build trusting relationships with our dogs. See you in the next one.